If you were to take a quick look at a map of Europe, you'd probably miss this little speck of a country that's sandwiched between Switzerland and Austria. The country is called the Principality of Liechtenstein, and it's the sixth smallest country in the world. The country is 62 square miles in size and has a population of only about 39,000 people. Despite its small size, the country is incredibly wealthy, with a GDP per capita sitting at $183,000, making it one of the richest countries on Earth. But how? How did this little alpine country ever come to be, and why has it remained independent? 1264, Medieval Europe. European politics is dominated by the power that is the Holy Roman Empire. But the Central European state had found itself in a precarious position in 1264, for the empire had no emperor. With the death of the last emperor, Emperor Frederick II, in 1250, the Kingdom of Germany was divided, and another universally recognized Holy Roman Emperor would not be elected for another 62 years. During this period, known as the Great Interregnum, the various German kings squabbled for power in a bid to obtain control over the empire itself. Political scheming was everywhere, as the German princes of the empire attempted to consolidate their power. But in 1264, the dynasty of Kyburg went extinct, and their lands, which included much of the Alpine Plateau, including the territory that would become Liechtenstein, passed to a family that was rapidly growing in political power, the Habsburgs. In 1264, the Habsburgs were being led by a man named Rudolf I, who would go on to be crowned King of Germany in 1273, making him the first Habsburg king in Europe and the most powerful man in the Holy Roman Empire. With Rudolf in power, much of the territory the Habsburgs had acquired from the downfall of the Kyburgs was in fief to the Counts of Hohenems, meaning the Hohenems could administer the land in return for swearing fealty to Rudolf I. During this period, the valley that would later form Liechtenstein was actually two separate counties known as Vaduz and Schellenberg. Under Hohenem rule, the valley experienced what was perhaps the most difficult time in the valley's long history. During the 17th century, the 30 Years' War was keenly felt by the ever-poor farming communities that inhabited the valley. The war would devastate the Holy Roman Empire, and would leave millions of its citizens dead from starvation and disease, and the counties of Vaduz and Schellenberg were not spared. Throughout the war, the bubonic plague rapidly swept through the valley, killing villagers with every occurrence, and then the religious aspect of the war creeped into the valley. With so much death and starvation surrounding the people of the empire, the uneducated and desperate masses were in search for answers. And as was common for medieval Europe, innocent people were labeled witches and paid the ultimate price. In Vaduz and Schellenberg, 180 innocent people were blamed and executed for the unbearable events that the valley was experiencing. The devastation of the 17th century would be too much for Vaduz and Schellenberg to financially overcome. The events would leave the Hohenems in a mountain of debt and unable to recover. So the entire valley was sold to a new family, the House of Liechtenstein. While the Habsburg effectively ruled the Holy Roman Empire, the House of Liechtenstein was slowly gaining in wealth and influence. By the year 1700, several members of the Liechtenstein family had been close advisors to the Habsburg rulers themselves. Despite their influence over the leaders of the Holy Roman Empire, the Liechtensteins lacked any real official power over the country due to a problem with their lands. You see, the Liechtensteins governed plenty of land that included parts of Moravia, Lower Austria, Silesia, and Styria. But all these lands were held in feudal tenure, meaning that all of the Liechtenstein's lands were subject to the rule of a more senior feudal lord. And as long as the Liechtensteins were not in possession of any land that did not obligate them to a more senior lord, they failed to meet the primary requirement to obtain a seat on the Imperial Diet in Vienna, the legislative body of the empire. A problem the Liechtensteins finally solved with the purchase of Vaduz and Schellenberg in 1699 and 1712 respectively. Finally free of a more senior lord, the House of Liechtenstein was given a seat in the Imperial Diet, and on January 23, 1719, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles VI united Vaduz and Schellenberg into one principality, and called it the Principality of Liechtenstein after its new feudal lords. With the status of principality, Liechtenstein was also given the status of a sovereign member of the Holy Roman Empire. Despite its status as a principality, Liechtenstein was still an incredibly small, poor, and insignificant part of the empire. So insignificant that not a single member of the House of Liechtenstein even bothered to visit the principality until 1842, nearly 130 years after the purchase of the land. Instead, the Liechtensteins preferred to live in their holdings in Austria and Moravia. For almost 100 years, Liechtenstein remained a small principality of the Holy Roman Empire, governed remotely by the House of Liechtenstein, until a seismic historical event altered the future of Europe and the world forever.